What's up, you guys? American, welcome back to my channel. No, you grow up. So for today's video, I was kind of inspired by this article that I saw. I'm going to talk about the article itself a little bit, but not that much, because honestly, it's not a very good article. If you want to read this article for yourself, I'll put the link in the description down below. But it was definitely written by somebody that doesn't really know what they're talking about. Just to give you the gist of it, the main point of this article is kind of just talking about how The Last Ronin feels like we're coming full circle and it feels more like a Mirage story. But this person doesn't really know that much about Mirage, because at one point they make it sound like Krang was in Mirage, and yes, the Utroms were, but Krang was never actually in Mirage. And they also act like the Chameleon was a character in Mirage, and he was an Archie character, I'm pretty sure. And they also talk like Baxter Stockman hadn't been used in forever, which really, he's like a major player in IDW, and he's pretty much been in every iteration of the Turtles ever. So I don't really know how credible this person is as a Turtles fan, but at least this article gave me an idea for a video. So all I want to talk about is kind of the impact that the Ronin has had on TMNT. The person in this article will kind of have you act like it's the second coming, and I feel like a lot of major outlets seem to be kind of humming that same tune. You've seen a couple publications pump out like the 4 new Turtles from the Roninverse are like the new Turtles, but the Ronin is actually just kind of like a what if series. It's not even really set in any particular universe. To me, it does feel like an extension of Mirage. It definitely feels like it does come from that universe, but I know they specifically said it is kind of its own contained universe. The Last Ronin miniseries was very, very, very important to me. It's actually what got me back into comic shops for the first time. I heard it was coming out and I wanted to read it really bad, so I went down to my comic shop, talked to him about it, and that's actually when I started my pull for my comics there. Once I knew that that was coming, I actually got into the old Mirage books, and that's when I started buying all the hardcovers, and then eventually I started tracking down all the single issues and stuff, and I almost have a complete run of Mirage. I think I'm like 11 issues short or something like that, but it really did just get me excited for things again. Definitely modern action figures, NECA helped a lot with that, and there was a ton of hype around this book when it first came out. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was an issue with the artist from the original one, and they actually had to redraw the entire book. So by the time this book actually hit, the hype around it was very real, and yes, it was a huge selling book for that year. I know it sold well into the 6 figures, which is very rare for this day and age, even though it was a very common thing in the early 90s. But there's a couple variables that go along with that. First of all, the first issue of this book had like 10 million different covers. So there's probably people like myself that own 5 copies of the first issue of the Ronin. I have first, second, and third printings of it. I might even have a 4th, I can't remember. And then I have the Eastman 1 and 10 variant as well. So a lot of people bought multiple issues of that book. And when a book like this has a lot of hype around it, you'll get a lot of people that spec on this book as well, which basically means they think if they buy it now, they'll be able to sell it for a lot more later, which definitely inflated the sales of this book. So even though they sold well over 6 figures, it was probably way, way, way less people that actually bought the book. And this book was very well received. I've definitely heard some negative feedback here and there, but for the most part, I would say the majority of the TMNT fandom really enjoyed this series. And it obviously did well for IDW, because clearly they're keeping it going. They just finished up with The Last Ronin of the Lost Years, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, it was kind of a nothing burger. I thought it was pretty boring. It was honestly just a filler story to kind of watch these new turtles grow up. And Volume 2 is about to come out soon as well, and I'm just gonna have to be honest here again, I don't think it's gonna be anywhere near as good as the first volume was. I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler warning here. 3, 2, 1. They killed off the Last Ronin at the end of Volume 1, and that kind of just deflates anything you can really do going forward. Volume 2 is going to revolve around these new turtles, and it just doesn't seem like this series does enough with character development to really make us care about these new turtles that much. And I feel like that's really why I'm just not that into what's going on now since Michelangelo died. The Lost Years did have a lot of Michelangelo in it. That was the other half of the story. It did another round of flashbacks where it kind of covered everything that he was up to between when his brothers and Splinter and Casey and everybody died to when the events of The Last Ronin started. And I would say that was definitely the more exciting part of the story, but still, it just wasn't really that great, especially following up The Last Ronin itself. And I feel like I have a very basic opinion when it comes to this stuff, so I feel like if I'm feeling this way, the rest of the fandom is probably somewhere around where I am with my feelings. I don't think the second volume is going to do nearly as well, and honestly, that's the biggest problem with The Last Ronin, is like you kind of jumped the shark too early, so there's not really a lot of places you can go with this universe, because without the old turtles to anchor it, it's just not turtles. I really don't care if there is new turtles. Without any of the old turtles, it's just not not the same story. Not that many people actually read comics anyway. I feel like, yes, the Ronin did bring in a lot of readers, but the IDW run doesn't sell very well. I know a lot of people are probably like me where they buy A and B covers because they want that Eastman B cover and they probably read the A covers. So I know the Turtles books aren't really read by that big of a percentage of the fandom to begin with. So even though I think the comic book realm is kind of gonna go downhill, I still think the Ronin can do really big things in other places. We've already seen it in action figures. NECA kind of has its own separate line going for the Ronin right now. They don't even do IDW figures, but they're dipping their toes deep into the Ronin pool right now. And the NECA Armored Ronin figure is one of my favorite figures of all time. Even Playmates killed it with their Ronin figure. I think that's probably the best thing Playmates has done since the 90s. And if you can get good action figures out there, TMNT fans are going to respond to that, because honestly, I think that's the biggest driver for TMNT right now, but that's a video for another day. Some of the biggest news to come out regarding The Last Ronin is that we're gonna get a AAA video game, which I am very shocked is happening. I'm very excited to see what this is gonna be like. Everyone's saying it's probably gonna be like in the same vein as the Arkham games. My hopes are really high for this game, but I don't want to let them get too high because we've seen a lot of AAA flops in the last few years as well. So hopefully they just take their time with this game, it turns out good, and I do feel like it can be really good for the franchise. Another thing the Ronin does, which nobody's really talking about a lot, is I feel like this is probably our only way we're gonna get any type of like R-rated Turtles movie or R-rated Turtles content in the future. Now, I'm not saying I don't think there's a chance we can still get a really good Turtles movie. We just saw that like fan-made CGI one that came out not too long ago with Leonardo that looked amazing. Like a movie in that vein would be super good, but odds are they would still keep it PG-13 because Viacom doesn't want to alienate young kids with Turtles. Like, they always want it to be more so kid-oriented because it's on Nickelodeon. Like, that's their brand, and I understand that. Clearly, I would want like a darker Turtle story, but I understand why that's probably never gonna happen. I do feel like The Last Ronin just does open up doors that they wouldn't go through with the regular Turtles, and I feel like that's what the main future of the Ronin needs to be. I very much enjoyed Mutant Mayhem, but I know a lot of people didn't, and I do feel like there is a way to serve everybody in the end. So to wrap things up, do I think The Last Ronin was this huge like saving grace for the Turtle franchise? Do I think it re-put it on the map? Do I think it brought it into mainstream success? Not really. I do think it did a lot of big things. It's going to open up some doors, but I don't think this is like the second coming of Turtles by any means. At the end of the day, the majority of the love for Turtles is going to be for the four brothers, not this solo Turtle in his own series, which again, I love it. I think it's awesome, but it's never going to be the same as what it is when we have the dynamic with the four brothers. And again, it was something that got me back into the fandom, but I feel like I'm kind of a rare instance. I don't feel like this really sucked a lot of people back in like it did me. I think it was kind of just a timing thing with me as well. It really was just the perfect storm at the perfect time. And I love the Ronin. I'll always be very fond of it, but I don't think it's ever gonna surpass the regular Turtles in popularity at any point. So let me know what you guys think. How important do you think the Ronin is to the ultimate success of the Turtles going forward? I think it can be used to help and do things that the regular Turtles can't, but I don't think it's ever going to surpass the regular Turtles in popularity. Thank you to all my subscribers. Thank you guys for sticking around, especially during these long hiatuses between videos. I'm not even going to make any promises at this point. I'm just going to make videos when I have time to make them. That's all I got for you guys in this one. So take it easy, be safe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.